Welcome to the Geekfest Fan Film Star Wars Star Trek Fan Film Panel. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks to all our panelists for being here. I'm not sure how many of you have gotten a chance to see these films before, but some of them are previous year's winners, some of them are entries into this year's Geekfest Fan Film Fest, and they're all incredibly well done. So I'm going to have you guys just go down the line, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your film and what you did working on the project.
Hi everybody. Is this on? Doesn't matter? Alright. My name is Ryan Goland, and I'm the co-creator of a web series called Red Shirts, which is a little comedy about people with the worst job in the galaxy, and a lot of people die in it, and we were here last year in the Geek Film Fest, and now we're on Stanley's World of Heroes channel with Geek Film Fest, and we've got about 8 episodes online, so please check it out.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Joshua, and I'm the writer and director of a short film called Star Trek Wars. And so we're here representing both Star Wars and Star Trek. It's a comedy about George Lucas and J.J. Abrams battling over Star Wars 7. And so just wanted to do a big tribute to both franchises and the creators and the fans. And a lot of us, all of my producers and one of our actors, the guy who plays J.J. Abrams, is here. So yeah, we just had a great time. Thanks for coming.
Hey guys, I'm George Shaw. I am mainly a composer. I write music for films and TV and video games. I actually got to work on his project, doing the music for the trailers. But for my project, I wrote and produced Star Wars Musical, which is a fan film that basically combines the world of Star Wars as if it was a Disney musical.
I'm Raymond. I created Star Wars: A Toy Story. I made it for the Star Wars Fan Film Awards last year, and it was a finalist. And it's a fan film about a fan and his toys, and they get into some adventures.
Stuart Baker. I'm director of Younglings, which played this morning. Younglings is it's social commentary on basically what happens to geeks when they get old. And it's all within the context of Star Wars and childhood obsessions that we never quite get over. So not a fan film per se, but more sort of social commentary, having fun with just the pop culture that we live in today and how much it means to all of us and how it can get a little out of hand at times.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for being here, guys. We're really lucky to have such an incredible panel here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Trisha Hirschberger, and I create content for the YouTubes. I am a digital producer, writer, and on-camera talent for the channels Escapist, Ami, and previously I worked full-time creating content for the channels SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd. And I'm completely honored to be here today. Congrats to all of you guys for sharing your fandom in such an inspiring way through Geekfest. This is awesome. So we'll get started with some of the easy ones, and whoever wants to jump up first and answer these is welcome to do so. How did you get started filmmaking?
Well, I got started doing improv. I've done improv since the early aughts, and but when I started doing this, I decided I wanted to write something for myself, and my co-creator and I, Ben, started riffing on the idea of Red Shirts as a series, and just wanted to see like what the guys were doing. Like mainly we were talking about how like whenever in Next Generation like Data would get up from his seat, some guy would like rush right to it and like take over, and we thought, what is he doing before that happens? You know, what are they just standing on the wall like, you know, just chatting about stuff? I'm like, oh, I gotta go, it's me. And so that's when we started on the concept of this, and then we started writing it, and I realized I was writing parts that wasn't right for myself. So I ended up just directing it and co-writing all the episodes and producing it, and that's when how I kind of got started on that. And I'm already on to another web series as well. So that's kind of how I got the ball rolling.
And what's your next web series on?
I have another web series called Effed, which is an apocalyptic comedy, which is on Funny or Die. But we're actually doing a third season right now. We're writing our third season of Red Shirts, so I'm also working on that, more of that as well. So that's how I got started.
Very cool. Anyone else want to share the story about how they got it started filmmaking?
Well, I started, my start goes back to my childhood when I just grew up loving Star Wars and Disney films. And particularly it's because the composers I really admired were John Williams, who did Star Wars, and Alan Menken, who did a lot of the sort of 90s through early 2000s animated musicals for Disney. And, I wanted to be a composer, so I went to USC, studied film scoring, got out, started doing all kinds of short films, web series, feature films. And then when Disney announced that they were buying Star Wars, it was magical for me, because that was the two things that I loved the most, and I thought I should write something just to kind of poke fun at that whole combining of the two worlds, and ended up producing my first film as a result. And at the moment I'm writing the sequel, so there will be another Star Wars musical hopefully in next year's Geekfest. And also as a composer I've been working on a lot of awesome Star Wars fan films. I just finished 2 that are coming out on a YouTube channel called Wong Fu Productions, so check that out sometime. And that's sort of how I got into filmmaking.
Awesome. Looking forward to Star Wars musical too. That sounds great. Anyone else?
Well, I just really have had an appreciation for a lot of the arts. I was very much into music in high school and photography and theater, and you just realize, oh wow, filmmaking involves all those things, and it just opens the door up to working with a multitude of amazing artists, and that's probably the most rewarding part, is getting to collaborate and getting to see what people bring to the table. And continuing in this way also, I just love getting a chance to tell great stories. That's what you always want to start with, is something that's worth saying. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Well, I'm a little older, so I go back to a different era in terms of filmmaking. Started making films as a kid in this thing called Super 8, which some of you may have heard of, and went through a traditional film school program at NYU, and then it became very interesting in the early to mid 90s as desktop technology made filmmaking more possible for lower budgets, and I somehow got dragged into technology for a long time, basically supporting the studios with the production of their films, and I'm only now really pulling back into being able to make independent films again and kind of coming at it from the other end. But I will say that as far as being a part of the filmmaking process, it is really an incredible opportunity to work with so many different kinds of artists, and to bridge all of that together is just incredibly satisfying. To be able to blend music with image, with story arc, with graphic design. There's just so many great things and so many great artists that go into the collaboration that is filmmaking, and it's just such a pleasure.
Excellent. Did you want to say?
Sure. I actually am an engineer by trade. I was an engineer for like 12 years, and a few years ago I wanted to do something different, and I taught myself motion graphics, and I started freelancing doing that, and I wanted to get more into visual effects and work in maybe some indie films. And then I saw this contest on StarWars.com for this Fan Film Award contest, and I was like, this would be perfect, I'm a big Star Wars geek, and I'll just make my own project so I can get into visual effects. And so I did it, and I'm working on a sequel to this one for this summer, and moving from there.
Awesome. Well, and I'm glad that you bring up visual effects, because I feel like when you're working in any kind of sci-fi or fantasy content, that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome, is making that fantasy real for the viewer. So I want to know how many of you actually do have a background in visual effects, if you do that professionally or if you were self-taught.
I have no background in it at all, but we do have a guy that does our visual effects, and he does, so that's been great. And he handles all of it, and it all amazes me every time. We even shot an episode where we have a character meeting, like, they go back in time and he meets an earlier relative of himself. So to me, just as the director, I was just amazed at how we set up each shot to have each side of the screen and how they came together just in editing. It was not even much of a visual effect, and I was still like, amazing, movie magic is incredible. So it's certainly way above my head, but we have a great visual effects guy who luckily does a great job for us.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have a background in visual effects either, but and originally my concept of shooting the Star Wars musical would be to find real locations and to do it that way and actually avoid having visual effects. And we found that just that would have been really difficult. And the way we ended up doing it was shooting everything on green screen and then compositing everything. And I had a great team helping me out with that. So they really came together to make it happen. But the way it turned out actually made it even better because it was like we were placing these live action characters into this animated Disney world. And that just cemented the whole sort of mashup of the two worlds. So thankfully that happened.
Did you do your own visual effects?
I did not. I have a couple of close friends that my film is maybe the most low-tech film of this entire Geekfest film program, I gotta say. There are a few moments of sparkle, but it's mostly about the characters and about the arc of the story. And it's just a fabulous world right now with so many people that are so talented working in that space. So, I think that my focus personally is on story arc, good storytelling, and if you build it, they will come, so to speak, in terms of the talent that you're able to pull in that can help you to realize your vision from a VFX point of view. So I would strongly encourage anyone out there that's interested in making films to really think about story development and trust that the things that you need from a technical perspective are going to be there for you if you have a good story to tell.
Awesome. Well, I have a question now for Raymond. Your short really drives home the message that you should never change who you are for someone else. And I want to know, was this autobiographical in any way? Was this based on anything from your life?
Okay, yeah, so if you haven't seen the film, it's about a Star Wars fan who, still has all his toys and he enjoys collecting, and his girlfriend wants him to give up Star Wars and, kind of grow up. And he's kind of trying to decide whether or not that's, what he should do. But it's, it's not autobiographical in that way. I mean, my wife supports my Star Wars habit. She knows I'm a big fan, and she's very supportive. And thanks for letting me play with my friends and make a film with all these toys. But when I thought of the what story I should tell for the Fan Film Awards, I wanted to touch on a subject that maybe a lot of fans might have felt. Certainly. When I was in high school, I probably felt these kind of things like, I'm a big geek, who's going to love me, So I thought, that would be kind of a good subject to make the film about.
Absolutely. I think that hits home for a lot of us. Yeah. All right, my next question is for Ryan. Your cast plays incredibly well off of each other, and so much of the series depends on that humor and the interplay between the characters. Did you know the entire cast before you went into making this, or did you hold auditions?
Yes and no. Like I knew all the guys because I had done improv for so long. When I moved out to LA, I was doing improv with two of our main guys, Shannon and Arnie. I was doing improv with them. I met them via UCB classes, and then I was performing at IO West with Nick, who's our other guy. But we actually did audition Nick, because we had not cast that role, but I knew I had Shannon and Arnie, and they've known each other for years. So once I got Nick involved with them, now the three of them are like really, really close friends. And actually Nick and Arnie were both cast in a film together called, what's it called? Anyway, I don't remember what it's called, but it's so they got cast in that, and they improvise a lot in that, and they're all improvisers.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how. So they actually have a great camaraderie, and they're actually the ones pushing us to do another season because they want to keep working together. And so, yeah, we lucked out on that.
I've heard them say 90% of the battle is casting.
It is, yeah. We got some really good people. So we didn't have to and we have a lot of friends who are all actors and stuff. So we don't have to kind of work too hard in that. to cast our series.
Well, it certainly worked, so well done.
Thank you.
My next question is for George. Do you think, now that Disney owns Star Wars, that there will ever be an official Star Wars musical?
I kind of doubt it, but I think it could work as like a theme park attraction. You know, like having like. Actually, I would love to pitch it to Disney and make a live show that takes Disney songs and tells the story of Star Wars. But I kind of doubt they would really go for it.
I don't know, never say never.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's awesome. It might totally work. All right, my next question is for Stuart. In your short, a poker game turns into a quite heated conversation over some specifics of Star Wars. What is the most intense argument you have ever had in real life about this subject matter?
Wow. Most intense argument I've ever had about Star Wars. Probably attempting to defend the prequel, the parts 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Because there are things about the arc of the entire saga that if you take that away, it loses a little something. So, you know, anytime you're going to make any kind of argument about 1, 2, and 3, you're going to get a lot of pushback, and you have to be brave about it. You know, so is it as good as episodes 4, 5, and 6? No, absolutely not. But you know, I think Lucas really tried to expand the scope for his vision of that, and while it falters in a number of different ways, I think it's rich. You know, so certain friends will roll their eyes, but they know my position on it, and they at least pretend to listen when I try to talk to them about that.
Did it ever come to blows?
It never came to blows, you know, so it's very interesting. Younglings was actually written originally as a contemporary script, and I thought it would be more interesting if it was set sometime in the future and it was basically old men that could never get over what existed in their youth. And I didn't write it, but I really liked the way that it did come to blows. You'll have to see it at some point to appreciate that. And we had a lot of fun with that, but no, there's never been that big a meltdown as you would experience in the film.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, and for Joshua, so here we see a comedic take on the creation of Star Wars Episode 7, and you know, we see people, the power play between J.J. Abrams and George Lucas, and I have to ask, for you personally, are you Team George or Team J.J.?
Oh, okay. Phew. No, I thought she was gonna say Star Wars or Star Trek.
No.
You know, the whole point of the movie is that they need each other, because I love the originals, and I love the new one, and I even love what J.J. did with Star Trek, and they're both extremely talented filmmakers. I'm not even trying to be a politician, but there's, you know, they both provided very important pieces of the puzzle. I don't think one is there without the other. And even Star Wars can't continue to live on without J.J. Abrams, and Star Wars wouldn't exist without George Lucas, and Star Wars wouldn't even exist without Gene Roddenberry setting the groundwork with Star Trek. So it's all connected. I do hope in my heart that George Lucas will be happy in his retirement years. So, and love the enthusiasm of JJ. So.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of the major points that we certainly see expressed on the internet and in the world amongst the fandom when it came to Team George versus Team JJ, and the way that you reconciled it is beautiful. So, a lot of the fandom thanks you for that. That's very cool. All right, and do we have any aspiring filmmakers out there? Anyone who wants to make fan films? What would our panelists, what would you guys say to anyone out there who wants to get into making their first fan film? What advice do you have for them?
Well, if you're going to make your first one, pick the fandom that you absolutely love, because it's not easy to make a film, and when you're passionate about it, and you just feel like you have to make it, it's so much easier to just get through the long nights and all the work.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say you just got to have subjects that you really love and that you're really involved in. I mean, we set our show like not in the sort of Kirk Spock Star Trek universe, but as like a sci universe. We built our own costumes, so we sort of made them all look like Star Trek, but it's not set in Star Trek. And then when we released it, we thought Star Trek fans will love this, and we actually got pushback a little bit because it wasn't, Star Trek proper. And it was like, but we all love Star Trek, isn't this all great? And it was like, not, so you have to kind of like, the love has to kind of push you through those kinds of moments that you're not anticipating, where you're like, oh, I never anticipated that response, that's odd. So the passion's gotta be there for those tough moments.
I mean, well, in the case of fan films, you do it because you really want to. Part of the difficulty is that I don't know that we're going to go sell our content because it does have certain relations. So you're doing it because you really love to do it. And if it really is your first film, figure out the craft. The first one is not going to be good. We all made 5, 10, however many films before we got to something that we liked. But more importantly, keep asking questions, keep making the connections, set the deadlines for yourself, because it just has to be done. You have to do it. You have to trial and error. It's kind of rocky, and then eventually you might get to something that you like and maybe want to put some money into, and you grab 100 of your closest friends, and then you do it. Just go do it. Just do it. No excuses. Go home. Start writing.
Awesome. Joshua, I'm glad that you brought up, the obstacle that you overcome making a fan film, because it's someone else's intellectual property, so you can't hope to sell it a lot of the traditional distribution ways that filmmakers look at. So once you guys are out there and you've made your fan film, how do you recommend that they go about getting it out there and getting people to see it? What's the next step when it comes to fan films?
Is that okay? Well, yeah, I'm learning that today. I really am. I think maybe we all are. And I am having a great time just hearing reactions from fans. Our screening went very well today, so thanks to you who were there. And just connecting with other people. We've been able to accrue over 1,000 people on social media in the last year.
Awesome.
No money put into that. And we're still hoping to go places. We're reaching out to all the fan groups. We've done podcasts, a lot of the fan podcasts. Yeah, and then George here, I think, also has done a lot of work with that.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you have to think where's the audience for if it's Star Wars, then you can Google and find all the Star Wars blogs, websites, podcasts, and just sort of reach out to people who love it, who will then share it to their audience. So even Twitter, finding YouTube artists, just reaching out to people and just sharing it, and hopefully, it'll sort of gain traction and find its legs.
And then would the next step be from there that you build this following based on your fan film, that then you can release your own original content and have a following already inherent there?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to think of yourself as a brand, and so making a fan film can be, for me, I identify as a geek, so I definitely want to appeal to the geek audience, and I've got other projects coming out that are that will appeal to that audience, so that helps me build that audience for myself.
That's awesome. Stuart, do you have any advice for any aspiring filmmakers out there?
Yeah, what I would say the most amazing thing is just how cheap the technology is now. Anybody is a filmmaker if you've got a phone and you've got some freeware on your computer that allows you to cut images together. So I would encourage everyone to just keep shooting. Shoot material, play with it, cut it together. There's lots of free music online that you can download to put behind it. Just make a lot with a little, and just continue to look through, with your eye as if it's through a lens. Be thinking about compositions, and also just continue to network and know people, and think about where the opportunities are in terms of putting people in a position where they can be creative with you, so you can build a good cast and crew. It's just incredible what you can do with so little if you've got a story that's compelling and inviting to people that are already interested in making films and want to participate in the process. My film this morning was completely pro bono, cast and crew, and it's just absolutely remarkable if you've got something that excites people, what you can do for next to nothing except food. Got to feed your cast and crew. So.
Raymond, or Stuart, you just touch on something that's really cool about fan films is when you're putting together cast and crew, and if it's a fandom that people love, they are much more supportive than just some indie film that you wrote that has nothing to do with any sort of fan base. So that's one thing that really helped us get our film made, was people were just excited about the project.
Okay, awesome. And Ryan, I know that you touched on this one a little bit, but for everybody else, what's coming next for you?
I have a sci-fi, another sci-fi project in the works. It's a feature film. It's actually a sex farce that takes place in the future. It's pretty edgy material. It isn't tied to any pre-existing franchise. It's just having a lot of fun with androids and a middle-aged couple, and really looking forward to bringing that to fruition hopefully this fall.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Well, I've got a number of fan films popping up. Like I mentioned before, there's some Wong Fu videos. One's called Audition, and it's a big lightsaber fight. Another one's called Crystal Forest. Those should be probably going on YouTube pretty soon. And I've also been working on a Indiana Jones fan film. It's a feature film that's sort of a prequel to the original trilogy, and it's been in the making for 10 years. And I've been involved for almost 9 years. So we're nearing completion this year. So hopefully the world will get to finally see the work we've done on that. And I did the work as a composer. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go to my website, georgeshawmusic.com. And also look out for the sequel to Star Wars musical.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm also looking forward to the sequel to Star Wars musical. So go look his up. But also, this is, I don't know how exciting this is, but we're putting together a lot of behind the scenes for Star Trek Wars. So our film is available to watch online. I hope you get a chance to check us out. We have flyers around. But also, we're working on DVDs and stuff like that because we're all nerds and we want a physical copy to put on our shelf, right? With all the, I think we have twice as many bonus features as the length of the movie. So that's hopefully more projects in the future, but right now we're just having a great time pushing this thing and just trying to get it out there and meeting everybody.
BTS is always fun.
What's your website?
Facebook.com/Star Trek Wars Film.
Excellent.
Like I mentioned, I'm doing a sequel to Star Wars: The Toy Story. Sorry. For this year's Star Wars Fan Film Awards, I enjoyed the first one, but I always thought I could do a better job. I haven't gone through it once. So watch out for Star Wars: The Toys Awaken. So it revolves around the recent Force Awakens movie release. And it's going to be kind of the same premise, Lucas and toys, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm also trying to work out some story points for a sci-fi horror movie that I want to eventually get made, hopefully. If you follow my Facebook page, you'll probably see stuff on that in the future.
And what is your Facebook page?
Well, actually, probably the easiest would be to go to, I have a page for my Star Wars fan film. It's called starwars.pixelplex.com. And Pixelplex is my freelance business, so you can find me there. And I've got posters here that have that website on it, so if you want a free poster, come find me.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and I have one more question before I open it up to the audience, and then it's going to be your question time. My last question, and this is for everyone, answer as you like. Red shirts versus stormtroopers.
Well, have you seen the meme where the stormtrooper misses and the red shirt guy dies anyway? So I'm just gonna have to say stormtrooper.
Okay, one vote for stormtrooper.
Well, I have to say red shirts as a complete bias, but we'll actually, in one of the shorts that we're working on, we're gonna do in our next season, we're going to do 10 episodes, and then we're also going to do some shorts just to kind of be interstitially released between episodes. And we will talk about one of the guys gets propositioned to become a stormtrooper and starts discussing it as a possibility. So we'll sort of tackle some of the differences between being a red shirt and being a stormtrooper.
Awesome.
Well, what I'm thinking is, even though red shirts do die, they die heroically in the line of duty. And stormtroopers, they have no excuse. They're just bad shots. You know? And they're also part of the Empire, so that's no good. So and there's never an end to the supply of red shirts. So they haven't killed all of us off yet. So I'm thinking red shirts.
Good points.
I say stormtroopers because there's got to be more Finns out there. So so I'm a big fan of Finn, and hopefully more turn.
I'd have to say stormtroopers. I love to hate them more. So they qualify as good, something to be afraid of.
Well, that's it. We officially have a split panel, guys. All right. So now it's time to open up. If any of you have questions, please just raise your hand, and we'll call on you one by one. Questions for our panelists?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, guys. Appreciate it. Question for you for those of you, most of your series have touched on pre-existing franchises. Have any of you had interesting experiences with coming up against distribution and copyright?
For me, I entered this in a Lucasfilm, officially sanctioned contest. So I followed all their rules to the letter, and they selected me as a finalist. So there was no danger there. So but I'm sure maybe these guys might have run into some stuff.
Well, actually, I was on a panel, I think it was actually a Geekfest panel last year, and there's a guy in the audience who worked for legal for, I think it was for Disney.
Wow.
And he said he had actually had a meeting with people from Lucasfilm about whether or not they would go after Star Wars fan films. And he said the answer is you're okay. If it's a Star Wars fan film, they'll be okay with it. So.
We've kind of discussed that since we started working on this, and we did we tried to change a lot of the verbiage to try to move us away, so we weren't going to be in any sort of copyright infringement. But ultimately, we sort of landed on like, if they're going to come after us, that means we're doing so well that we're making a lot of money on this. And since I checked the books and that's not happened yet, don't think we're in a lot of fear of that. But I would say I hope that's a problem that we will eventually run into. But I don't think it's an issue right now.
I mean, he said it don't make any money. And you're golden. But in terms of, we had a lot of discussions, are we going to be difficulty? I think for us, our goal was to create something original that had an original story, that wasn't simply just reiterating the characters or just blatantly reusing things. And I think we did a really great job of that. We did not use any copyrighted sound effects. All of our lightsaber sounds were created organically. So there's no actual sound and completely original score. So don't ever try to avoid using score music, copyrighted John Williams music, and also at least in our situation, we wanted to celebrate things. So in my opinion, these films I think support the franchises. They support the brand and are in line with the tone of the original stuff. So if you can do that, or at least make it a comedy, so it's clearly a parody, because then there's a parody law, and you can get away with certain things if it's blatantly different and if it's blatantly making fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I had all kinds of fights with my producer about what we should and shouldn't include in Younglings, and we tended to err on the conservative. For example, I really wanted to have the 20th Century Fox fanfare music up front with the film, and he was also the composer and came up with sort of an alternate fanfare that's even more cool. So I think that that's a great example of you don't need to rip something off completely. You can have your own variation on it that is uniquely yours and you own, and it really protects you in an interesting way. But everything that we chose to include in our film, and again, it's not a fan film, it's sort of social commentary on the franchise, was a very careful decision. But it is a very interesting question because, you know, it really, in this way, there's this tension in terms of your level of success. You know, Younglings has played in some other festivals along with a film that a number of you have heard of, I'm sure, called Prelude to Axanar, which has raised over $1 million and is strictly a non-profit fan film. And Paramount initially signed off on this. They had meetings with Paramount and everything was okay. And then, you know, it became a problem for the Prelude to Axanar production once they actually managed to raise that much money. So suddenly it's in a league with, you know, productions that Paramount could put out where it's actually competition. So you've got to be very, very careful, and you could do all the right things, and if you're going to be enormously successful, you could still run into serious problems. So it's a very gray area, and you just have to be cognizant of what your goals are and how much you're investing in the product in order to achieve it.
For sure. I'd like to second that it's all about the money. I'm good friends with the masterminds behind a Harry Potter musical, and they made that when they were in college and put it online. It was just a college project, and it wasn't until they started selling t-shirts at conventions that they got a phone call from someone from legal who said, oh, yeah, we're going to have to talk about this. They managed to make it all work, and it was fine, but again, it was all about the money. Yeah. Any other questions? No questions at all. Come on, there's got to be somebody out there. All right, well then with that, thank you so much to our panelists. Is there anything else that you would like to give as parting words to our audience today?
Live long and prosper.
With that, thank you guys so much. It was an honor to have you on the panel today. Thanks everyone for coming out, and enjoy the last 15 minutes or so of Long Beach Comic Expo. Thank you.